Good evening again. Ron Motta here, Activate Worcester. And our guest this week, as he was last week, is Jay Givan. And Jay is our man with the political view out there. He's our Scud Stud. Remember him? The Scud Stud? I think he's dead. That was the guy in the, which war, whatever war it was. And he was standing there, rockets are going off, he has a little brown jacket on, and he fizzled out pretty quickly. But that goes back.
Sounds more like Baghdad Bob.
Yeah, something like that, something like that. Guys, if you saw the show last week, we got into a lot of discussion, a pretty broad discussion of what was going on an international basis and how it interacted with what's going on here in Worcester. And we kind of left off, if you will, talking about what's been going on and what's happening on a local basis with the connection that a lot of the local politicians seem to have, drafting a note really about getting out of the nuclear business, which is what they'd like to see us do. And any thoughts on that?
Well, we were in mid-sentence last week, so if I can quote Jack Parn, as I was saying before I was interrupted, it's a joke. I mean, we have a city where every motorist that's ever been through the city in the last decade plus is playing pothole bingo, and Sean Rose decides he's going to solve the nuclear weapon issue at a city council meeting. Mm-hmm. It's a total joke, and the people who voted for it are a joke. I think Donna Calorio, Mo Bergman, I think they voted, they either abstained or voted present, mm-hmm. kind of like Barack Obama in the state Senate. It's a total joke. And we have businesses leaving, the taxes are going up, utilities are going up, the potholes are a complete mess. Mm-hmm. And he's going to worry about something so far out of his league, my position and intelligence, quite frankly, with you. It's idiotic. It's just
well, you know what it really is. If you guys have ever been involved serving on a jury panel, if you will, one of the things you'll notice that attorneys will do, because they're very good at this, is obfuscating or misdirecting. And rather than handling an issue directly, they'll bring something off that's totally tangential that if they're fortunate enough that people will go in that direction, it takes the heat off the fact that they don't want you to get back to that specific point. So exactly. To your issue of Sean, and I mentioned Sean Rose, because you just did, but
I mean,
the other folks
as
well.
With them,
the whole group, yeah. Rather than looking internally at what's really going on in the city, and realistically, the potholes it's not a joke. If you drive in the city, you're going to be blowing tires. I already have, in fact, 2. There's potholes everywhere, up and down my street, and it's like they fill them with sand for a couple of days, and then it withers and goes away. And it's really an ongoing mess. And our taxes continue to go up aggressively because the values go up. And I know we're the 9th hottest real estate market in the country, blah, 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 blah. But there's a lot of people that can't pay their taxes. A lot of people can't buy food. We're into some dire straits right now. So and I'm not negating the importance of controlling the nukes, but that's something that's not within your span of control in the city of Worcester. Worry about the city of Worcester, and let's get off the high horse. If you really want to be a senator or a president, well, run for it, go for it. But at this level, help us out because we need the help in the streets.
All these people want to do is virtue signal because fundamentally they have no idea how to run a city. And they have no idea how to run a small town. Mm-hmm. And like I said, is he in his 3rd term or his 2nd term?
Sean?
Yes.
I think it's his 3rd.
3rd? All right, well, he's been around long enough to have gotten Burncoat Street repaved. Mm-hmm. And a lot of these people, they don't know how to, they don't want to, and that's the issue. Mm-hmm. Again, last week I was mentioning these people are radical, are anti-American radical leftists. They don't like the country. If they don't like the country, why would they like the city? And I think it's that easy. But take that aside. They're incompetent. They're incompetent because they don't know anything. They're in the Housing Alliance. They're in some, quasi. They're in this quagmire of bureaucracy that they live in, and they can't get out of it. I mean, Sean Rose flounders around and flops around between educational degrees and nonprofits. He doesn't do anything. He's not out on the road trying to sell something. He's not making a quota. He's not building anything. And none of these people know how to do anything. They're not engineers. They're not doctors. They're not certified in anything that's going to help anybody. They're just basically hacks.
They're also not small business owners.
Right.
Or,
they don't know
or mid-range.
anything.
That's right.
Yeah, so if you don't know anything, you don't know what to do. So then you start virtue signaling a bunch of BS that's way out of their league. It drives you crazy. And this is why Donna Colorio, she's serious. And Mo Bergman, he is serious. And there are others that sometimes they go along with it, sometimes they don't. But Sean Rose, and I don't mean to pick him out because there are others, but he's the one that came up with this cockamamie resolution.
Indeed.
At heart, he's a hack. It's all a hack wants to do is he is desperate to have the title city councilor. And that's his identity. So he's going to cling to that. And he's a bitter clinger of the title city councilor. He doesn't care about Worcester. If he did, you'd be driving down Burncoat Street or West Boylston Street like this, not like this.
Well, the reality of it is.
But tell Harjia,
Yeah.
she doesn't have that hack mentality. She's an ideologue. She's totally nuts. You can't reason with someone like this. She's in this electric car, no fossil fuel fantasy land, and she's going to destroy this city if she gets her way with things. How do I know that? She said it. She wants to ban gas stations. And most of the gas stations come with a quote-unquote C-store, convenience store, and they supply food, they create jobs, they create tax revenue. Now, all this stuff the city and people needs, but she's against it. And all these other fruitcakes and nitwits, Sarai Rivera, Christian King. Christian King's now the dumbbell. If there's anybody that can be considered a racist in this city, it's Christian King. It's the KKK, the Christian King Club. He is obsessed about race. All he talks about is equity, which is just a total expletive.
There you go.
And it's racism, systemic racism, institutional racism, and it's a crock. 78% of the students in this city are quote-unquote minority. Asians kind of go back and forth depending on the left's agenda. 55% of the city is considered white. What race has none of these people can even say what regulation, what bylaw, what anything in City Hall is actually racist. Yeah. But they don't know how to run the city. They don't know how to balance a budget. They don't know. They don't know anything. They're just incompetent people because they're not trained in anything. They don't know how to do anything. And the city's a mess. So what do? They virtue signal. They live in this fantasy land, and they all voted for Joe Biden that put us into this big mess in the Ukraine and China and the whole.
And they're all marching to the same drumbeat. It's kind of interesting.
They're idiots. I
think, for example, about Gary Rosen. Okay, Gary is no longer on the city council, and Gary is a friend of mine. I'll say that up front. But I also respect what he did as beautiful District 5. And also at large. This is a guy that was involved with a lot of different things, and he was a catalyst to make things happen. He didn't sit on his laurels. If you didn't like the way the garbage was being picked up on your street or the way the streets are being plowed or not plowed, whatever, he was on these things. He's on the Coast Pond thing and so on and so forth. He made things happen, okay? Rather than pontificating about things that really they're interesting concepts, but what are you doing to make it work or not work, if you will? Now, you mentioned earlier a very, very, I thought, salient point about people on the city council not liking America, hating America, okay? And hopefully you folks have heard this, not from me for the first time. There was some sort of a survey that was put together. I don't know if it's Quinnipiac, I forget the source of it. They looked at people who identified as being Democrat, not Democratic, but Democratic Party. Ages demographically, I think it was between 21 and 35. I could be off with a couple of years, it might be 18 to 35, but you get the gist. The question was, if this country were to be invaded, i.e. Ukraine, would you step up and would you help out? Would you fight for it? Ready for this? Almost 60% said, no, we wouldn't. This is a bad country. We wouldn't die for it. The hell with it. That's the bottom line. That's what we're working with.
Yeah, so why would you defend a country you don't like?
That's exactly
and going
right.
back to, I think it was 3 days before the 2008 election, Barack Obama said, we're here to fundamentally transform the country. Well, why would you fundamentally transform something that you love?
Mm-hmm.
You wouldn't. I mean, this country is imperfect. We all know that.
People are
you
imperfect.
try to fix things and then things progress and all that. But these people fundamentally hate this country and they hate this city. And look, Mark Levin was on a couple of weeks ago, and he was saying how the Democrats, and not, you're not your 1960s JFK type people. He's speaking of these radical anti-American leftists. They hate our education system, so they put in all this, the 3 R's and the respect, whatever the 3 R's are. There ought to be reading, writing, and arithmetic.
That's what it used to be.
Oh, by the way, so there's a few, and I'll get back to the main point. I feel like Donald Trump at a rally.
No, just-
kind of all over the place.
That's fun.
So there's a lot of websites and Facebook pages and out there. Turtle Boy, Red Metro Worcester, Dark Red GOP. They're all varying degrees. And I saw one place where a public records request was sent to the school department and asking for how much does this 3 R's, the new graphic sex ed curriculum cost? Who's teaching it? And where do they get their degrees from? You have to be qualified. You have to be qualified to teach math, history, or whatever else. And how much is the total budget? And the copy of the curriculum grades K through 12. Mm-hmm. That's what they passed last May. So you wait and wait and wait. This is according to this article that I saw. And as it turned out, they wouldn't answer anything. The one question that did get answered, how many people have opted out? You could just look that up in the Telegram and Gazette. Mm-hmm. And everything else, who's teaching it? We don't have to disclose that because the school department said this 3 times. Anybody that's asking the school department who is teaching their kids this graphic sex ed curriculum could be like a terrorist. I mean, can you imagine that? And asking the school department, who's teaching my kid subject X?
The questioner
is paramount to terrorism.
The questioner is the terrorist.
Correct.
That's what you're saying.
Because it could fall into the hands of a domestic terrorist. And because these people, I forget the name of the group, and this is basically Chanel Soucy's platform. Just, you know what it was, and basically childhood development and so on and so forth.
Indeed.
They said, well, there's a lot of misinformation and disinformation being spread by these radical groups. Well, if that's the point, why don't you disclose all this information so there won't be disinformation and misinformation?
Yep.
But they don't do it. So getting back, so Mark Levin was saying they don't like education, and how you can ask yourself, if you were to ruin education, how would you do it? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Defining education is, can the kid read? Can he do physics, geometry, just basic stuff. Mm-hmm. Come out like he graduated in the 50s, or even the 80s, or early 90s. They hate our statutes, so they want to tear them down. It's why? Because they hate the past. It's and so on and so forth. They don't like our economic system. How do we know that? It's tax increase after tax increase. Now, they want the whole country to be like Massachusetts. They don't. We don't have the highest tax, but we have every tax. The regulatory, the regulations are a tax. Joe Biden has set in place massive inflation, about 7-8%. If they use the same formula as 40 years ago, we're at a 40-year high, inflation's at about 15%.
I just heard that.
Now, if you're middle income or below, a retired person on Social Security or some sort of pension, that 15% really burns through your wallet pretty quickly. So doesn't $4.29 or $4.50, $5 gas, wherever it's going to. What is it, $7.55 in Beverly Hills?
I hope it
No,
becomes
they can absorb
$17.50,
it,
go
but
for
you
it.
start moving closer to Burbank and the Valley, and I know the area. It's going to kill people. Food's going up. Insurance is going up.
See, the thing of it is that people look at they listen to the smoke and mirrors that are being fed to us. And they say, well, it's no big deal with the gas, it'll come down, blah, blah, blah. A year ago, or a year and a half ago, gas was about $1.89 a gallon. Now I paid, $4.39. Okay, that's a lot more than 15%. That's about 250%. But the point is, if it was just gasoline that went up at the pump, well, maybe you could suck it up. It's another $20 a week, $30 a week. But it's everything behind that. The cost of the cars are up 40%. Used cars that you can't find are up 40%. There's limited product selection out there, and those prices have gone up. I work, as I think you know, in an appliance company, and our prices have gone up since the pandemic, because they have to, about 40% for washing machines and all this other business. Right. So, and food, just for fun, I used to buy, my wife used to buy it for me, something called a tomahawk steak, okay? She'd catch it on sale for $7.99, normally $9.99. Now and this was like a special cut that you get. Now it's up to $19.99. That's a little more than 15% increase, isn't it? And that's what's happening across the board with everything now.
And to tell you just how great things are going, there's a new word being in the country's nomenclature, shrinkflation.
Heard that one too.
Same price, but now you're going to get less than what you spend.
Less for more. It works out. It works out. A couple of random thoughts. Whatever happened to Anthony Fauci? He's like disappeared from the public persona. Maybe the light has been shown upon this guy to be the corrupt midget that he really has turned out to be.
That's Billy Baldwin.
Well, part two, and you're exactly right. Same ball game, same height, as is Putin, by the way, all 5'5". Secondly, whatever happened that you said about the Democratic Party, it's the Democratic Socialist Party, and that's what he calls it, the great Bernie from Vermont, okay, who's really the godfather of the new America. That's why he's disappeared for the last several months, because all of his plans are being enacted. And guess what, folks? You voted for Joe, you really voted for Bernie. Do you like what you've got? Well, this is the United States of Bernie Sanders. Enjoy it. Also, what's happened to the four little Queenies, the squat, or the whatever they want to call themselves, the I Hate America Quartet? They've been kind of quiet, too, haven't they? Because every damn thing that they've championed, same thing has turned to you-know-what, human excrement, and rightfully so. That's kind of the way it is. We have a few minutes left. We have one more topic I really want to get into with you, because we talked about this a bit. The savior for this country, the electric car. Talk to me about why the electric car is going to be the panacea.
On occasion, a guest comes on, and you kind of know things, but they don't come to the forefront of your brain. Yeah. I forget who he was or in what show, but he was saying 80 to 90% of the cobalt that's used for electric cars, or can be used for electric cars, is in China. Well, that's very interesting, because when you curtail oil production or energy production, gas prices go up, as we've been talking about.
Isn't that interesting?
Prices go up. Now they're going to force the need for electric cars and God knows what else. And so where are you going to buy the energy? I mean, a battery is not an energy. It's not energy. It's an energy source. You put energy into it. You're going to buy the materials from China. Why would we buy materials from an adversary who's going to quickly become an enemy?
Well, you don't have to just buy it from China. You can buy it from Russia. Because what you
that's
also need to make the batteries work is something called lithium, okay?
Heard nickel is an ingredient,
and nickel
too.
as well.
So how do you make nickels if you're going to put nickels into batteries?
That's exactly right. Well, don't worry about that. You know, we'll have Bitcoin or yen. The yen will be the standard.
Well,
But-
if the dollar becomes worthless,
Which
what's
they're
a
working
nickel?
on. That's another story with Saudi Arabia. Anyway, with the Chinese yen and not paying off in dollars. A whole different subject, frightening as hell, and it could happen. Gold standard has been bye-bye for a long time. But back to the batteries themselves, you have to have components that we don't have in this country. And because we're concerned about global warming, the filth that's involved in mining these things is absolutely mind-bending. But there's more to it than just that. The batteries themselves, once they've outlived their usefulness, which is about 5 to 7 years, okay, we have no way of really like throwing them into the sea and making them disappear. So you're going to have these things, thousands and hundreds of thousands of these things. What do you do with them? And they're toxic, they're dangerous. And the other part of this thing is, and again, I'm hazy on the detail, when they start making electric trucks, which is what all the brilliant ones want to have done, that have a range of about 300 miles, but that's another story, okay? These things weigh huge amounts of weight. So what that's going to do is obviously slow the trucks up, and it's going to increase the cost of delivery. But let's get back to the real root cause, because we don't want to get in and do any digging, because that's horrible. We only have well over 100 years' worth of product here in the States, and maybe more. But where does this electricity come from? Does it come from, toenail clippings, unicorn
that's a
farts?
good-
I don't. Where does this stuff come from? It comes from stuff that we have to have fossil fuel
I mean, Rush
to make
Limbaugh has been saying this
electricity.
for a while. It takes more fossil fuels to make an electric car than a regular car would burn up in a lifetime.
By a lot, exactly right.
So my niece just turned 16, and if she were to buy a brand new electric car for $60,000, if you can't afford an extra buck for gas, go out and buy a $60,000 car, electric
Makes sense.
car.
Pete Buttigieg will tell you that.
So by
He
the
understands
time,
this.
so if my niece had it, I think she'd be 107 if she kept that car for the rest of her life,
Mm-hmm.
to break even with a fossil fuel equation. But I want to get back to the radical left, either in Washington, the state,
Please.
or locally. And they are not opposed to fossil fuels. Atal Harjian, and I'm picking on her because she's the most outspoken and local person.
She's asked for it.
Atal Harjian is not opposed to fossil fuels. She is opposed to American fossil fuels. I forget the name of these wacko groups. They all endorsed her, supported her, and there was a thing in the Wall Street Journal about 6 months ago saying that the Sunrise Movement, I think she's the local chap for Sunrise Worcester, but anyhow.
She got the franchise.
This article was saying that the Wall Street Journal, this group is just, adamant to get rid of fossil fuels in this country. But they don't say boo about the coal plant and everything else that's being up and running in China once a week.
That's over 50 a year in China.
Yeah, it's insane.
And it's filthy. The mining is filthy
it's
compared to what we
filthy?
do. Yeah.
Yeah,
Our stuff is nice and clean. It's the cleanest coal you can ever find. Because they treat it, they do all the right things with it. But, it's almost funny. If you buy olive oil, if you buy wine, there's a certain chic in buying stuff that's imported, right? You want Greek olive oil, you want German, French, or Italian wine. You don't want California or New York wine. okay? You want the imported stuff.
Right.
That's what we want to do with oil. Why do we want, domestic oil? We can get the good stuff from the Middle East and also from Russia.
And
We want imported oil.
You've been talking about energy sources and all that.
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
also uranium.
Yeah.
Which reminds me that there's a quote-unquote Republican candidate running for governor, Chris Doty. I met him a few weeks ago. He seems like a really nice guy. I don't have an axe to grind with him personally. Politically, however, he was pushed by Pierre Delecto, a.k.a. Mitt Romney, a never-Trumper, and he's running against Jeff Deal. Basically, if it weren't for Jeff Deal pushing to tank the gas tax in 2014, we'd be paying more at the pump. Chris Doty admitted he'd supported and voted for Hillary Clinton in 2016, and he's running as a Republican. So he is there to split the Deal vote. He wants to get his 15% at the convention in May in Springfield. If anybody's showing up to this, the Mass GOP is as screwed up as anybody. And I got a call from the Jay McMahon group a couple of days ago. Plymouth has 70 delegates they're allotted. They only have 2 confirmed.
Going to the convention.
Yeah, 2 out of 70. It's a disgrace. The Mass GOP is as screwed up as anything. So they're pushing Chris Doty, who voted for Hillary, and he's there to make sure Maura Healey wins. Maura Hold It Healey, who's done nothing but sue Donald Trump during his presidency. It's amazing. So you have the Democrat Communist Party, and you have the rhinos, the Baker crowd that appease them. And it's insane. The WRCC needs to get very focused and start fighting these people that wherever they can.
Remember the old
We can
line?
do a whole lot of things, but we need to be focused and start knocking out these people.
Couldn't agree more. Do you remember the old line from Snoopy? We have met the enemy. It is us.
The only thing we have to fear is the Biden
Biden
administration.
administration. Anyway, Jay, once again, great having you on. You remember the word catharsis that we learned in psychology? These shows are cathartic, at least for me. They really and truly are. Hopefully you enjoy it. Hopefully you hear some things that are kind of provocative and interesting and so forth. If so, call, let us know, but also watch us next week. We'll have a good show for you then. And once again, thank you for sharing your evening with us. Good night from Worcester.